A grandpa told his grandson that he should live a little. Here is what he said: "Well, that trip really tanked. Opa was a war criminal." Good joke. But damn, if grandpa was around 18 in the 1940s, he's pushing 100 at best now, and has a 18-year-old grandson? Pop's got game. An elderly Russian man went to visit Berlin, but he encountered some passport issues at the border control, and the attitude of the staff wasn't very good. The old man said unhappily, "The last time I came here, I didn't even have a passport." The border officer asked, "That's impossible, how did you come here? In a tank container?" The old man replied, "In a T-34 tank." First time I saw that on Reddit was 14 years ago. It was funnier in comic form. I did not see that one coming. Good one. This joke is so old that Gramps turned 110. Hi, I'm Miguel Noguera, concept artist working in video games and Hollywood projects. I worked on Battlefield 2402, Returnal by Sony, Arc Raiders by Embark and more. I am also a mentor in the entertainment industry. AMA, do you answer questions? How come there are no comments here? What happened? Big Nog or Little Nog? Who you got? Have you implemented any AI tools in your setup and workflow like? Your work seems amazing. Have you done some stuff inspired by Portugal? Did you ever hang around that? Being inside the entertainment and video games industry, what do you think are the basic changes that must be done inside those industries? I met a girl at a bar one night. Low blow bro. You can trade 5 from the bottom shelf for 1 from the middle shelf. I don't get it. Is it funny if you have to explain it? Sure as take my upvote. You win. The votes came in and well, yours got stuffed. Go ahead and pick a second prize from the bottom row for this joke. When I heard this, she explained the system before saying take something from the bottom shelf. Either she explained before or after, I'm not sure about that though. American Fairground prize. She's referring to the prize system at an American fairground. My stupid non-native asked those stuffed animals like in hunting trophies, heads of deers, mouses and us on. This joke doesn't make sense at all. If I am addicted to masturbation, but it turns into a sex addiction, depends on what comes next. The dad's joke is in your hands, not here. More of an uncle joke. Either way, you're fucked. Much like the guy down the street from you with a telescope, I saw this one coming a mile away. 80% of all humans are addicted to masturbation. The other 20% are liars. Try to beat it. Not a dad joke. I think it's all in hand. Typical RADHD posts. You guys really can't find anything else to pick on. Can you? Means you're contagious. It's weird knowing that we're living through a pivotal point in history and 99 of us can't do anything about it. That's typically how it goes with pivotal points in rewrite though. I wish there was something more I could do too. You've described pretty much every moment of history, pivotal or otherwise. It's the difference between reading history and living history. You read Roman history and you get Cicero and Julius Caesar and Octavian and Brutus, then you live history and you realize that you're none of those at all. Most of the time I'm just pleased I'm not one of the Gauls snatched and taken back to Rome to be sold. I feel like that's probably how a lot of it happened. We are all just people trying to survive while the leaders of the world keep making the choice to make survival more difficult. What makes it pivotal? I think that's been true of most pivotal points in history. Literally all of human history. Laundromats taking quarters doesn't make sense anymore. Especially given the prices to wash and dry. Not a lot of money in laundromats. Even less if every penny you make has a paper trail. We the US really need to get rid of pennies and pick just one style of dollar. Should even get a $2 and $5 coin and we will set for the next few decades. Never understood the lack of use for the 50-cent piece. There's a reason for this. These machines need to be able to run unattended for extended periods of time. Dollars frequently jam. Coins rarely jam. My building phased out quarters over a year and a half ago. It's all done via an app on our phones now. Wouldn't be able to do laundry if I didn't have a smartphone, which is some bullshit. I would prefer that price increases come in the smallest denomination possible. Just means they'd have to up their prices to cover the cost of changing from quarters to something else. Many people have black tape over their laptop and desktop cameras, but hardly anyone bothers to cover their cell phone camera. I'm one of those people. You're completely right. I need to watch the movie Snowden again. My laptop has a built-in webcam blocker that I can physically slide open or shut. If it didn't have that, I probably wouldn't bother with covering it. I've certainly met people who have their cell phone cameras taped up. Similarly, people tape over cameras but never bother about the microphone too. which arguably is even more invasive. I actually use the cell phone camera. My phone camera is kinda built into the screen, so it's not practical to cover it. I want Big Brother to see my poop face. Not as easy to hack a cell phone camera like you can with a PC. Also, a cell phone camera isn't in a static location that many times has a view of the whole room. Overall, including their own people, which country has historically killed the most people? In absolute numbers? China. Relative to their population? Mongolia. China had some crazy wars prior to modern history, where like half the population died. China, no contest. China's always been one of the most populous countries on the planet, and its history goes back by literal millennia. Even if you take the PRC out of the equation, it's still probably China just because of the countless civil wars and conquests that the various dynasties and even the Rock have had. China, they have like 3 of the top 5 biggest death tolls for wars under their belt. China for sure. China. Hands down. Was going to say Russia, but it's probably China, and not that we'd know fully. Till in 2006 Disney traded Al Michaels to Universal to regain the rights to Walt Disney's first character, Oswald the Rabbit. And this is why Al is so grumpy on these Amazon Prime games, pretty much just so the devs could use him in Epic Mickey. Good old Oswald. The japes he used to get up to with Graham the Mouse were hilarious. And then never used Oswald in a cartoon of his own. He could always just quit Universal and move back to Disney. Lol. Normal companies can just up and trade people. UBI works. This implies that Walt made this character himself. Personally, I'd rather have Al Michaels. Pwned. He should be in Kingdom Hearts. I thought Alice from the Alice cartoons was his first character. Oh shit, I thought they were the same person. Disney also has a cult-like indoctrination process before you're hired. Betcha that's something you didn't know. Even Disney out here doing prisoner swaps. Till It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is the wordiest show on TV with 176.2 words per minute, which makes the Rob McElhenney-created FX sitcom the hardest series to follow if you're watching with subtitles. Shut up science bitch. Part of that though is when all 5 talk at once for extended periods. But also the show does seem to be almost all dialogue with very little action or other sequences, so yeah, this makes sense. The show also accounts for a whopping 94 of all bird law discussion on TV. I've been poisoned by my constituents. Struggling to keep up with the subtitles? Remember these words of wisdom. Well, first of all, through God, all things are possible. So jot that down. Ronald McDonald. Till pandas become too lazy to mate in a perfect habitat. This may explain marriage. Did you know that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world? Where none suffered, where everyone would be happy. It was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. We created Panda Perfect Matrix. Dude, we're supposed to be brawling because I want to steal your mate. Have it, man. I'm chill with my bamboo shoots. Panda doesn't want to be given pandussy. He wants to hunt pandussy. Pandas are so cool. Given the choice between fichin and leaves, they choose leaves. Fucking savages. Well, with every country having population decline, I guess we are all just sad pandas. Not just pandas. You can check fertility rates in developed countries. They sometimes make them watch panda porn to get them in the mood. But methinks maybe lady pandas just aren't all that attractive. Till about the Germans' World War II mechanized myth. Tanks and planes looked more threatening than horses, so horse footage was censored. In reality, horses pulled 2/3 of the German army's vehicles. Q. Webster's loud rant in Band of Brothers. You can tell if a German artillery gun was towed by truck or by horse by looking at the rubber wooden wheels with steel rims. Didn't the myth work then? Nowadays they still look threatening. Only the ignorant think that Wehrmacht was 100. Wehrmacht's big innovation built on the shoulders of Little Heart and others was to mass their armor to create a breakthrough for follow-on forces to exploit, instead of distributing their mech and armor evenly among foot infantry as rolling bunkers. Not many people know that even during World War II, horse is still massively America, whose massively excessive industrial capacity allow her to commit to mechanized everything. Till one bad apple in a bunch of apples will release ethylene and ruin all the other apples in the bunch. If only there was a saying to warn us. Put that apple in with the potatoes and it will keep them from sprouting in long-term storage. Maybe we can ventilate the apples? And the phrase is one bad apple spoils the bunch. It is as though most people live in an entirely different world. Apropos of nothing, the phrase pull yourself up by your bootstraps was intended to mock the obvious impossibility of actually doing that. Ethylene is how they turn commercial tomatoes red. Bananas release a ton of it too. Anything fruit or flour stored with bananas will rapidly deteriorate. The Osmonds lied. Much like one bad comp. Op has to be a bot, right? That's what the saying about that one bad apple really means. People never remember this part when they say there's a few bad apples in the police force either. A few bad apples means they're all bad eventually. Still that in China, thousands of teenagers have been labeled as internet addicts and sent to internet addiction clinics, which are just psychiatric facilities that abuse them since 2002. The Doctor from Dead by Daylight was based on one specific doctor who treated gaming addiction with electroshock. Originally his add-ons were Chinese themed and the map was in China, but they later on changed him into a black American working for the CIA on MKUltra. The character he released with is still a Chinese pro gamer. I mean, many countries seem to have these abusive places to send troubled kids. The game Breakout 13 is based on this, an interesting Siowa-based game to check out NGL. This is why I love my wife. Hi, appreciated sometimes. I love my husband's dad jokes. Biggest fan, and I tell him often. Soon he will actually become dad, so I think he will go into overdrive, smiley face. My wife hates my dad jokes. I guess it just doesn't float her boat. My wife says I'm not funny. I think she may need dab workouts. I asked my wife why she doesn't laugh when I say something funny. She replied, when you say something funny, I'll laugh. It's about time she laughs at your jokes. A guy lit a little fire in the cockpit of his kayak to keep warm. Being one of those plastic boats, the coals melted a hole in the bottom and his boat sank. Proving the old saw, you can't have your kayak and heat it too. You don't need sometimes in the last sentence. Absolutely. Ha 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 ha, that's marvelous. That's a very creative compliment she gave you. 3 men sit in a Russian prison cell. The Soviet Union had a terrible alcoholism problem. To combat it, Gorbachev restricted vodka production. Consequently, the lines to buy vodka were very long. One day, after waiting in line for hours, one man yelled, "I can't take this anymore, I'm going to the Kremlin to kill Gorbachev." He left, but was back soon after, looking dejected. Everyone asked, "Well, did you kill him?" "Are you kidding?" said the man. The line for that was longer than this one. 300 million people. One comedian. Yakov Smirnov. What a country. I don't get it. This joke is so old. It's from before the NKVD was dissolved in 1946. Pretend I'm using a real Russian name. What secret will you never tell your parents? When I was a kid, we were on my dad's boat far out at sea. He asked me to take the wheel. After about 5 minutes I saw a big log floating and I steered into it and hit it with a prop, hard. I had seen a cartoon where they did this and it just turned the log into toothpicks. It didn't do that. We had to get towed in by the Coast Guard. I stole this tape they bought that taught couples some new techniques to spice up their sex life. They were demonstrated by 2 real people, so it was porn. I let a friend hold it and he lost it. I'm sure they know, but I'll never admit it. I was in fact in a dangerous area when traveling and survived a night of bombing. I lied when I said they repaid me for half of my sister's wedding dinner. My dad was somewhat forced into early retirement, and while splitting the dinner bill wouldn't change things overall, I did not want him stretching his retirement money to cover something I could afford to pay for in full. What warning signs are you seeing that no one is paying attention to? Healthcare is freaking scary. Staff shortages are reducing access to so many things. The collapse of public education is coming faster than any of us think. Teachers are quitting in droves. Lack of well-reported local news. Working as a PT in a hospital, I can tell you 90 of the chronic patients aren't getting enough treatment or medical resources. It doesn't really snow here anymore. We used to get at least a few inches 2 or 3 times per winter. It's been over 50 degrees the last 2 weeks. And an honorary mention seems like there's fewer and fewer bugs around each spring and summer. Used to go outside and there would be tons of bees, butterflies, beetles, and of course, tons of mosquitoes. Now? Barely a fraction of that number. What's a banging song from the 80s you're pretty sure 90 of people haven't heard in over 20 years? Definitely My Bathroom Is a Private Kind of Place by Oscar the Grouch. A true 80s masterpiece lost in time. Probably because most people don't have cassette players in their bathrooms anymore. Dancing with Tears in My Eyes Ultravox. Yes, Only You. Nothing But Flowers by Talking Heads. Something About You by Level 42. In Excess Mystify. Just Another Day by Oingo Boingo. The Zoo by the Scorpions. Life in a Northern Town. Heart Soul to Pow. Under the Milky Way by The Church. Ice House Electric Blue. Buffalo Stance by Nene Cherry. Run Run Away by Slade. The Promise You Made Cock. The This Is the and the Bunnymen Bed Bugs and Ballyhoo. No Myth Michael Penn, brother of Sean Penn. Weirdly. And We Dance the Hooters. Anything by Dramarama. I'll give you an obscure one. Flesh for Lulu I Go Crazy. What's the dumbest reason you've heard for a couple getting divorced? The dumbest excuse I ever heard was when my now ex-wife told me we needed to divorce because a palm reader said I wasn't her soulmate. Apparently, the guy she was fucking behind my back for months was her soulmate, and had nothing to do with why we needed to divorce. My half-aunt was wanted for murder in Oregon. So her husband said, "Divorce me, And then they can't make me testify against you, so they divorced. And lived together for the next 50 years, in Washington. I know. It doesn't make any sense to me either. I knew a guy who got divorced because he and his wife stopped enjoying sex with each other. I asked him if he had talked to her about what she likes and tried doing more foreplay. He said no and was absolutely not willing to do either thing. Basically, he expected her to just deal with him going in dry for the rest of their lives. When the Epstein list gets published, who's going to be the biggest M? That person, David Attenborough, would be the worst outcome. They waited this long so that the biggest names could negotiate their name off that list. Jake from State Farm, it'll just get pushed away and forgotten about. We already had many names that were on some of these lists and no one seems to give too many shits about. Fines was a name I saw come up pretty frequently. He's a great actor, so I hope none of it is true, but that's another thing. Even if someone's name is on one of these things, that's not exactly proof of anything at all. If the Panama Papers taught us anything, it's that evidence doesn't mean shit in the court of public opinion. Not when you $1 billion weaponize news entertainment as a diversion tactic. Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome. I expect the list to include a bunch of redacted. Is it an actual client list? Or just people who hitched rides on the jet? Who's the worst actor you have seen on screen? The folks in the OSHA training videos. You can tell they were paid with a pizza. Autocorrect is not my friend. Steven Seagal. Back in the 90s, Nancy Kerrigan hosted SNL. Watching her try to act was the most painful thing I have ever seen. It turns out figure skating and getting your knee bashed are not adequate training for acting on live TV. Tommy Wiseau. The baby in American Sniper was fucking awful. Will Smith's son, Renesmee. The entire cast of Secret Life of the American Teenager. Me. I played in a B-movie as a taxi driver. I suck. Mark Wahlberg in The Happening. Watched it for the laughs. Didn't make it all the way through. Rihanna was not a plausible actor playing a human. I guess she was slightly less bad in Valerian since she didn't have to. You never hear about women with porn addiction. Jokes aside, the pile of romance novel donations evidenced at your local library book sale tells another joke. You have to be in a woman's space where they're comfortable talking about that sort of stuff. As a former porn addict, I can assure you many women suffer from this addiction. It's not as fun as it sounds either. It really messes them up to the point that they can't even be intimate with another. When I was in rehab for alcohol addiction, there were at least 2 women in there who were porn addicts among many other things. Fanfics, romance novels, and character A. I would like to have a word with you. I see you've never been to that sub for girl gooners. Forget what it's called. I think women just aren't comfortable talking to you about their porn addictions. Gotta be in women's spaces. They don't talk about it because they'd be ashamed for it. They also don't want to be seen as the easiest chick on the block. 3 guys die and go to heaven. I'm guessing the punchline is somewhere along she cheated quite frequently. Number 43. When I heard it, she was on roller skates. I'm old. I love that the road to heaven has a diner. Sue, cheating is okay for heavenly bodies? Go fuck yourself, bot. This is great. Not saying you're copying, but I posted this a week or so ago. What I always think about this joke is that it's not so great that the angel or Saint Peter or whoever is used in whichever repost is so impressed with anyone who doesn't cheat like it's a miracle, or how people who only cheated once get rewarded.